Uh, yeah. Good morning, everyone, and happy Pride. On behalf of its Embryo and Uncle Club, I welcome you all to today's talk, a space for reflection and learning and celebration. Uh, we're incredibly fortunate to be joined by two trailblazers. Prarthana Prasad, a brilliant queer educator and storyteller whose voices challenge norms and inspire change. And we'll be joined by Kalki Subramaniam, a fierce transgender rights activist, artist, and changemaker whose work has shaped policy and hearts alike. In today's conversation, we'll explore the erasure of queer history, the evolution of the movement, and how we can build a more inclusive future, both as individuals and as a society. So, before we begin, hello, hello, Pratna. Like it's a pleasure to meet you and talk to you. Could you introduce yourself, like just a brief introduction for our audience?
Yeah, sure. First of all, thank you all for showing up at 11 a.m. Fairly sure most of you are still sleeping and barely woke up, probably because Aryaditya probably, am I saying your name correctly?
Yeah, it's Aryaditya.
Aryaditya probably texted you saying, hey guys, you should join or some crap like that. So, yeah, thank you guys for being here. And quick intro about myself. You made me sound really fancy by calling me like a queer educator and all of that. I just make great content on the internet. And yeah, that's what I do. I've been doing that for 4 years. I make videos, I make posts, whatnot. And for the past year and a half, I've been organizing like queer events in Bangalore so that, we can stop being chronically online, actually go outside, see the sun, and meet gay people, which I think would be very beneficial for our generation. And yeah, that's what I do.
Yeah, very true indeed. Um, okay, so we can begin with the questions. So I'll ask by asking like what's we'll talk about like the history stuff first, like the history of queer movement specifically in India.
Mhm.
Um, were there any stories or elements of like pre-colonial Indian culture which has helped you connect with queer or like trans heritage in a meaningful way? Like an example from mythology, perhaps.
Mhm. I think yeah, I there are a lot of examples to go off of in like Mughal culture and Hindu culture. There was like a lot more queerness, and the queerness wasn't as frowned upon. Like I'll be honest, it wasn't like it was great and acceptable or anything, but it wasn't as criminalized as it became post colonialization. And I think yeah, there's a lot of popular examples. Nothing that I personally resonated with because it's all kind of weird. I'm not gonna lie. It's all a little weirdly iffy about like the kinds of like it's written off as friendship or it's just written off as like part of the Kama Sutra and stuff like that. So I wouldn't say there's anything I've particularly resonated with, but I do think it's kind of amazing that we are from a country that has such a rich history and heritage, and our genuine indigenous history and heritage does not view this as some horrible unnatural crime. And I think it's a big deal with how many very I would say conservative folks in this country look at queerness as though it's a western import, when really the hatred towards it is the real western import. Otherwise it was just like an easy breezy Tuesday most of the time with how homosexuality and transgender identities were perceived before. I think, especially for transgender identities, I'm not the right person to talk about this. I'm sure Kalki would have done a way better job. But there is like a very, very rich religious and cultural connection that transgender identities hold in this country. And I think we are among the very few, like places in the world where that is true. South America, as it's a very wonderful heritage to be a part of, and I think we should take that inspiration and work towards making India way more queer and trans friendly than it is, because it's part of our heritage and our history.
Very true indeed. Um, Again, like I said, there is a very rich history here,
Mhm,
and even that spans like centuries.
mhm,
Like, very informative. I'll move on to the next question.
mhm,
Uh, what were the most powerful turning points you've personally witnessed, like lifetime, uh, uh, within your lifetime, uh, around like the Indian queer rights movement? Like we've talked about like the historical stuff. Like what things have you seen presently, which helped you in any way or form?
I think it happened in all of our lifetimes when like Section 377 was decriminalized. And I'm guessing you all were in high school at some point at that time, considering you guys are in college. I was in my second year of college, and yeah, I was coming back from lunch, and I kept checking my phone voraciously because I wanted to see whether the Supreme Court decriminalized it or not. And I'm sure you guys, you're in BITS Pilani. I'm sure it's a much nicer campus. I was in Christ University. There was jammers everywhere, so my Wi-Fi wasn't working properly. And finally, I saw that they did decriminalize it somewhere around the afternoon, and I was just so happy. But in a way, it was so bittersweet because I was literally jumping up and down thinking I can finally stop fantasizing about leaving this country because I can stay here. Like, if it's legal, that's enough for me. I can stay here. And then I look around, no one else cares, right? Because this is not something that was extremely massive news that people were following like it was the IPL finals on their phone. I was following it that way. And it was kind of bittersweet because I was looking around, I was so happy and excited. And I was like, oh man. But then, like my partner at the time, like we were like celebrating with each other over text. And like, I think a couple of my friends who knew that I was queer and were nice enough to care about it came and like congratulated me or something as though I was the lawyer sitting in the court arguing with a bunch of old men. And yeah, so it was really beautiful. And I think it was definitely a very historic moment. I think a lot of folks like to think of it like, okay, yeah, not enough has been done. That's true. Not enough has been done. But that was such a pivotal step towards making so much more possible. Like, it's so much easier to have a queer event now. It's accessible for everyone to do, not just someone who can protect against cops who might decide to raid the place or something like that. And it's less hush hush. Like if I speak to someone who's queer who's even like 5 or 7 years older than me, I'm 27. If I speak to someone who's literally just in their early 30s, their entire experience of growing up queer was completely different because they spent their 20s, which is the majority of the time where you can actually go out and connect with new people who are not just from your college or university circle. They spent that time living in a time when Section 377 was illegal, where it was illegal to be queer, where the cops would not outright maybe arrest a lot of people for it, but you were constantly under the threat of harassment. More than arrest is a big thing. Harassment is what most people would face, harassment, blackmailing, threats. But now that's not the case. So there's literally a generation gap between people who are just 5 years older than me, and it shows like it has made such a significant difference in how confidently we can approach lives. Like, and it's like the first base foundation stone that you put for other legal things to grow out of it. So I think it has made a difference, a huge difference. Not to say more cannot be done, but I can see how it's literally impacted my life versus people's life who didn't have that confidence, who had to live with that threat and that blackmailing.
Yeah, I'm sure like that is relatable to like a huge chunk of our Indian population, and
Mm.
I'm sure like especially like people who are much older, it was such would
Yeah.
have been such an important moment in their life, especially for queer people, waiting for in troublesome environments. Anyways, um, we'll continue with the next question.
Sure.
I think this especially applies to you.
Mm.
Like the internet has enabled visibility like never before,
Yeah.
but how do we ensure that online activism leads to change on ground, and like how can we increase like introduce touch the grass kind of essence in our activism, uh, i- especially in rural or less connected areas? What are your thoughts on that?
You asked me how online stuff can actually lead to non-online stuff, especially
Yeah,
in rural areas. Okay, fair enough. Uh, I think First of all, like if any of you all that are watching would turn on your camera, it'd be so nice because I feel like I'm just having a fun conversation with Arya over here. Or just give me like a little wave in the chat box so I don't feel so me and Arya
Yeah,
don't feel so lonely. I
yeah,
love you, Angad. Hi, Pranav. Good morning. Only to Angad and Pranav. Rest of you can leave. Hi, Shaurya. Hi, Mohit. Hi, Samhita. Hi, Ansh. Thank you, guys. Love you all. If you have any questions for me, please ask. I don't just have to answer these very serious, formal questions
yeah.
from us.
We'll be having like an audience
Yeah, yeah.
question.
After that, you guys can ask me as much unhinged stuff as you want. We can. And assuming none of your professors are here, so you can do whatever you want. Anyway, so yeah, thank you all for responding. Now, how does online activism actually? First of all, I feel like a lot of people have a smartphone. I don't say this to sound stupid, but I have spoken to so many people through my Instagram page at places where, to be honest, my ignorance didn't ever allow me to imagine there are queer people there. So it was pretty amazing. So I really do feel like, that online representation does reach like a audience that's not just primarily urban and primarily like middle class, upper middle class. It does reach a lot of people. I think one of the best ways, of course, to continue to make that representation reach a lot of people is to stop making it English centric, which is definitely, I would say, my main pitfall because I can't speak Hindi. I'm too South Indian. And if I spoke my mother tongue, no one would understand it because it's Kannada. So, only people in Karnataka would understand it. So I think queer creators who make content in Hindi and stuff like that, it does reach like a lot of people and it's quite accessible to a lot of them. But how does it actually translate into real world impact is a great question. I have no idea. I think what it, at least see, my intention with doing this is not to create real world impact. Like, I am not doing this so that one day I can make an NGO and start helping folks who at a grassroots level or something like that. I'm not capable of doing that. That is not what I'm doing here. What I'm doing here is giving maybe you as a queer person the feeling and confidence that you're not alone. Like, because I feel like the most harmful thing that queer people face is isolation. Like, the minute you feel like you're alone in what you're facing, it becomes like 10 times harder. The minute you feel like, okay, there are other people who are also facing what I'm facing, it becomes 5 times harder. It's still very hard, but it's a little less hard when you're lonely. It's like, when you're in a classroom, and I don't know, maybe in high school, not college now, no one cares. But you're in a classroom in high school and you're the only one who's getting in trouble, and it feels like really, really scary. And then suddenly, like two, three other people stand up, they're also in trouble. You're like, it's fine. Like even if I go into the principal's office, it'll be a like a group activity now, so it's okay. So that's how I feel about it. So I wanted to give queer people that confidence that comes from within oneself. I think that's what matters a lot. And I think it's kind of understated in the world of activism and stuff like that. I think there are a lot of people that have the resources to be very confident change makers, confident queer change makers in this country, but they don't see the hope and they don't have the confidence. And what I would really like to do is appeal to the vast majority of queer folks and make them realize you have a lot more power. You are not alone. And, like, if you are ever having doubts about your identity, there is like a place you can come to and ask questions for another person to give you their personal opinion on. And you're not alone. That's the main messaging. I think that can help anyone anywhere, whether they're in an urban background or a rural background. But I think, yeah, it does not lead to change as such. There are some ways, I mean, like fundraisers and stuff are a great way that online communities actually help. Like, I myself have, put up like a bunch of fundraisers for folks who reached out to me who were in like really terrible, terrible situations. And we were able to raise some money for them and help them out. So that is one thing that I can say I actually did to help people. And, or I actually see online activism helping people. But honestly, the majority of queer content creators in this country and outside this country are really just making jokes and putting on makeup. So I would say it is limited, and there's a lot more potential that can be harnessed for real world impact using this online presence, like having events or something like that. Like, there are like when I've hosted certain queer events, there have been people who walked in, and this was the first time that they were ever meeting another queer person. This was the first time that they were ever able to say out like, yeah, I'm gay or something like that in a group full of people that could listen to them. So that has made an impact on this singular person. And I think if that work were to continue with more and more people getting into it, it would reach more and more places and actually have some impact. Like, there is a huge potential with using online community. Like it's just massive. You can reach so many people. You can't reach so many people offline. So it's good to use this as a stepping stone to do more stuff.
Yeah, indeed. Especially like I think you are underselling yourself very much, but like it is very impactful. Like to know that you're not alone, and the
Yeah,
sense of community that you foster is, uh, it can be life saving for some.
yeah, it can. Like they find
But
housing, they find, queer friendly roommates, queer friendly housing. You can find like a community within your university, as I'm sure all of you guys have maybe done at some point, queer or otherwise. It's nice. It really helps you don't feel as lonely sometimes. So yeah.
yeah, so that was a very good conversation we just had. I'll continue with the next question. What's your honest take on like the rise of like queer and trans characters and like representation in general in mainstream Indian media? Do you think like it's meaningful or done as like a token or like to be done mostly symbolically? Uh, what is your thinking about it?
I think it's a bit of both. Like some of the things that have come out are genuinely like really impactful and amazing. Like there was a Malayalam film called Katal the Core that starred an extremely famous Malayalam actor, like a middle-aged, macho-looking man who's playing a gay man coming out to his wife in the middle of their marriage. It was amazing. Like it is the sort of representation I don't think anyone could even dream of, because it's such a shocking situation. Like it's breaking so many stereotypes, and someone who is so famous and mainstream is attaching their name to it. So yeah, I think some things are genuinely like really impactful in terms of the representation in media. I think some things are very tokenistic, like you said. And primarily for me, that comes up in these Netflix produced series. Like this Netflix, I don't know if they have it in their contract that if you take their money to make a series, you have to put one token character in the background and make sure they only get one scene where they can emotionally talk about the identity of the main character, and then you forget about them. I feel like that happened in Archie's. I feel like that happened in Mismatched. Like there was just one non-binary character that just walk in, walk out. It's just that sort of representation makes me feel like, okay, great. Maybe some people will learn the word gay or non-binary from watching this, but I don't think such folks are really watching these series in the first place. I feel like it's already young people who are like urban and aware of these issues that watch these things. And it is pretty tokenistic. Like you're just shoving it in there because you want it to seem really cool and you want to be cancel proof, lest someone come and say all your characters are so straight or all your characters are so cis. I feel like it's just cancel proofing that they're doing. It's like putting bubble wrap on your Amazon package or something. You're just doing it so you don't break. You're not doing it because you actually care about giving a queer story more screen time or or conversation space. You're just doing it like chuma just because it's the cool thing to do right now. So some of it is like that, some of it is not. Surprisingly, some platform like Art Balaji is making like a lot of fun queer content. Some of it is vaguely problematic, but stuff like the married woman and things like that, like it was pretty great. I think Madhuri Dixit played a gay mom at some point. So some really cool, wild things are happening. Like sometimes I open social media, I've not even heard of these shows. I see something really gay happen on one of them. I'll be like, how did I miss this? And I feel really sad about it because I'm like, what? So much is happening. And yeah, I think it's pretty great. And I think it's again a good foundation point, and so much more can be done. But I do think one solid good thing that has come out of this is I no longer think very mainstream Bollywood productions can any longer be openly transphobic and homophobic. Like a movie like Dostana, I don't think would take very well nowadays. I think like, folks would really tear it to the ground if it came out at a place like now. So I am hoping that people have become culturally sensitized enough that outright homophobia and transphobia in a Bollywood mainstream movie might not be taken to as well. Local film industries, I'm not too sure. I think that is one solid positive impact to come of it, and we can hopefully expect much more
Yeah,
if they continue to remember us and make things.
yeah, indeed. Hey, like you said, like some of it is tokenization, and like to an extent, their characters can often be used as like a plot device.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So I'll continue with the next question. Um, how this is like a big one. How do you think like systems like caste or class or language or urban privilege affect whose queer voices get heard and like who's kind of left out, and like how does intersectionality come into the picture? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
It massively plays into the picture, especially the question of caste and class. Yeah, if you have socioeconomic privilege, everything is going to be easier. I think that's part of the reason why there is a huge divide within the LGBTQ community in India as well. Like, we might be united by queerness, but we are divided by literally everything else. It's such a diverse country with such a massive population, all from different religions, within the religions from different castes, within the castes from different socioeconomic backgrounds. Of course, it's going to play out just like anything else. Like after a point, like the kind of queer people that you interact with and hang out with are going to be from a similar educational background or socioeconomic background, and that's the reason why a lot of people, queer people that have economic resources and privilege, don't actually become active change makers in this country because they're happy to stay in their bubble and protect their peace. I know a lot of queer folks who are living in big cities and they have amazing lives. Like they're partnered up, they have kids, they have cats, they live in a beautiful flat apartment. They don't care about landlord issues. They own their place, or their landlord is their friend, and they go out to like fun dinners. They make out on the dance floor. Everything is great for these folks. Like, I mean, I'm sure they struggled in their childhood, but the economic privilege that they got because of their education backgrounds and because of their class backgrounds just has made life easier for them. A lot of the times, it really shields you having economic privilege. And when you don't have it, you normally have the privilege to even come out. You don't have the, because unfortunately, one of the main things I tell people when they ask me, okay, should I come out to my parents, I ask them, unless you're sure they're going to react well, wait until you are like financially independent. Because honestly, if they actually react really badly, then what are you going to do? Like, because if you did have financial independence, you could just, you know, not call them anymore.
You should
You could
ignore them.
just chill at your place. You could just, live your life. It would be sad because you can't speak to your family anymore, but it wouldn't threaten your life. And see, again, I'm saying coming out, which is like one of the most basic gay things, is again, I am only saying that, yeah, 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 do it only when you have financial independence. So you have to have the money even to come out. That's ridiculous, but it's true, and it's very very unfortunate. And this is not to say that people from rural backgrounds will never understand queerness or something. I've heard so many beautiful stories about folks, even from that background, as parents accepting their children because their faith and their values is in the right place. So truly, I don't believe education eradicates homophobia and transphobia. Some of the most educated people continue to be very homophobic and transphobic. In a way, they are more homophobic because they want to protect the status quo even more, because they benefit the most from things being the way they are. So if you are from maybe even an extremely rich family, you would have a really hard time coming out because your family reputation is at stake and you're shaking the status quo too much, and people would be scared that they're going to lose their power in the process somehow. So I think more than education eradicating homophobia and transphobia, really it is just having values and beliefs be in the right place. And yeah, but I do think it makes a massive impact. The kinds of voice that are highlighted are folks that had the privilege to have their voices highlighted. Like even myself, for example, I've had the educational background, I've had the economic background to do what I'm doing. I do not make any money off of my Instagram account because I choose not to, because I want to keep I want to keep my content authentic and genuine, but also I have the financial privilege of having another job outside of this that supports me fully. So I don't need to make money off of my content. And maybe that's why my content is nicer for people. Maybe if I kept having makeup ads in between every other reel, people would not like me as much. But yeah, it's financial privilege, it's economic privilege, it's caste privilege, religious privilege. It really plays into it, which I think it's why it's even more important to have queer folks from various diverse backgrounds, give them a platform, for them to express themselves. I think it's really very important. I think it has sometimes does become an echo chamber in any community where the same faces and the same people are talking all the time. I think it's good to put in effort to find new people that will come talk in your face so that you can hear diverse viewpoints.
Yes, indeed, and I think like you touched upon this as well in your answer. So like I like to have like a follow up question.
Mhm.
Do you think within the queer movement itself, like you said, that we see exclusion or like elitism coming up because of this divide, and do you in what ways can we change it with our activism in
Mm.
and help those whose voices we can't hear for now.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to answer this from a very specifically Bangalore, Mumbai, Delhi viewpoint because those are the main urban cities in India, especially Bangalore. I'm from Bangalore, so I understand the queer scene here best. And you're right, the queer spaces are very elitist. I have heard accounts from people who go there who are apparently, I don't know, put down because of the clothes, kind of clothes they're wearing, if they're not uber fashionable, who are put down if their English isn't like crisp and lovely because there's a lot of language elitism in the spaces that want to exclude queer, like, local accents and identities and languages. And to be very honest, this is because the majority of the actively running queer spaces in these, and I'm not talking about NGOs and stuff that are doing grassroots level work. I'm talking about maybe like an event space, or maybe like, I'm sure you all are on Instagram. If you all are queer, any of you are queer, and you've seen the sort of events that are out there, a lot of them are parties and stuff like that. And they'll happen at, like, I don't know, the Lalit, at Kitiko, and other like super fancy clubs, Bira Tap Room, even a Gacy event in Delhi, for example, their Tinder made weekend is them just getting like a lot of money from Tinder to put up a queer event that is primarily just at DLF Promenade, which is one of the most expensive shopping malls in the city. And even if the entry is free and stuff like that to these events, not everyone is gonna end up feeling welcome there. Like what I said earlier about the queer community almost feeling like an echo chamber is very true. It's kind of the same people that are doing the same thing. And one of the reasons for that is that there's not a lot of opportunity for other people to come up and do it. Like, what are they gonna do? Like, let's say tomorrow, Arya, you decide to like start like you graduate college and you're like, yeah, I'm where are you from?
I'm from Mumbai.
Mumbai. Okay, yeah. Oh, great. So you decide like, okay, I'm gonna start like an organization in Mumbai that hosts like meetups and stuff for people. You're gonna face so many problems because where are you going to do it? First of all, a venue. Like most of these people that do events are like chum buddies with all of the venue owners and stuff like that. That's what makes it easy for them to do it. Otherwise, people are not willing to give you space to bring a bunch of queer people, occupy your space, and not pay them money for it. Like they're not okay with it. And how do you keep these spaces, free for all? I, as someone who has done events, have really struggled with how do you keep an event open to everyone, and how do you keep it without any financial barriers, because at the end of the day we live in a very capitalistic society. And so like I can't go up to a cafe and be like, hey, I want to sit here for 3 hours and order just one cup of coffee. They don't let me. I have faced so many issues with trying to do meetups in my city of Bangalore because of this reason. Because people, it's a capitalistic society, people want money for you to spend time in a safe venue. I can't invite people to my house. That's extremely scary. I can't invite people to a park because it's a public place. I don't know how other people will perceive them and threaten them. But at the end of the day, just because of the lack of options of where to do events, very few people end up engaging in doing events, and the same few people do it, and it ends up being elitist and financially barriered. And it's because of this. I think it's a systemic problem in the country as a whole, that there are very few places you can go and hang out without having to spend money to be there, right? Like especially in Bangalore, you can go to a park for free. Other than that, you can go to the road because there's nowhere else that you can really go. Like there's not a lot of publicly oriented spaces that just allow people to exist outside of their homes.
That was incredibly well put, and obviously it is a systematic problem. like with the capitalist structure, um, and we can't just be like one day end capitalism. Uh,
Yeah, I
so
mean, we'd love to,
yeah,
but we can't.
we would love to, but we can't do that.
Yeah.
But like to be aware about it is important, and I think you have
Mhm.
expressed that very well. Okay, moving on to a bit of a personal question.
Mhm.
um, like coming out to your family can be an incredibly defining moment. It can be an ongoing struggle. If you want to, what was that journey like for you? And like, was there something that taught, like, were there moments which taught you well from that experience?
Okay. So I came out to my parents when I was 19 years old. Before that, I had already come out to my friends, my high school friends, and I had come out. I have two older siblings, so I had already come out to them, and they were fairly supportive. And I think the primary reason why I came out to my parents is a my siblings were much older than me. They were both financially independent, and they were supportive of me, especially my sister and my brother as well. So it was really their support that made me feel like, okay, I can come out. I'm sure if I was an only child, I would have probably not come out for like years and years or ever possibly. I was really blessed to have two siblings support me and, never really said unkind word to me about. They had stupid questions, but they didn't say an unkind word to me about it. And another aspect of why I came out is it wasn't coming from a place of courage. I'd love to sit here now and pretend like, yeah, yeah, I was brave to come out to my. No, it wasn't that. My relationship with especially my mother, had deteriorated to such an extent because I was constantly lying to her. I had like a girlfriend at the time, and I was constantly lying to her about it, getting caught in lies. And like my mother was very suspicious of this friendship that I had with this girl, and that had caused all that lying had caused like such a deterioration in the relationship. I didn't imagine it could get any worse by coming out to her, because I was already riddled with anxiety. I was most definitely like quite depressed that year. Like, I think if I'd gone to a therapist, I would have been diagnosed with something. And yeah, I was just so deeply unhappy. I wanted to shake the bucket in any sort of way to get things to change, whether it was for the better or the worst. I didn't care. So it was sort of, maybe in retrospect, maybe it was reckless, but I really didn't care. Even if they wanted to kick me out of the house or beat me up or something, I was okay with it because that's how bad I was already feeling internally. So I came out to her, and she had a lot of, typically Indian parent things to say, like, oh, it's just a phase. Why are you thinking about all this? You should just be focusing on your studies. And she said something along the lines of, oh, you're very young. You can't know all of these things about yourself already. And thankfully, at least I had accepted myself at that point. Like, I had known that I was queer for the past 4 or 5 years. Like, I had come to that conclusion when I was around 14 years old. So by the time I was 19, I had like a good 5 years to process all of this information and accept it for myself and normalize it for myself. I think it's not often spoken about how much a newly realized queer person has to normalize queerness for themselves, because there is so much like heteronormativity in society. Sometimes we will feel odd about ourselves. Sometimes, not all people, some of them do. So I had to normalize it for myself. I did that by consuming excessively large amounts of queer content, so a lot of lesbian fan fiction and movies and YouTube videos, and just like it was just me sitting in this exact same room on this exact same desk, just voraciously consuming way too much vaguely inappropriate content, gay content on the internet, scrolling on Tumblr for hours and hours until I started to wonder why boys and girls date each other, because that sort of stopped making sense to me in how, gay I made myself by consuming all of that. So I think because I had normalized it and accepted it for myself, it was easier for me to hear these things from my mother, because they didn't make me doubt myself at any point. They just made me see with melancholic clarity that okay, it'll take her some time, if ever, for her to understand where I'm coming from. And to be honest, I'm 27. I came out when I was 19. That's 8 years. I only think she really started accepting who I was as a person maybe 2 years ago. So that's like a 6 year turnaround rate. Like, that is pretty long. But in that time, I realized that just because she was the parent and I was the child, I couldn't constantly And I say all of this in relation to my mother only because I was too scared of my father. I never came out to him. I think my mother told him at some point, and then he figured. I never had a face-to-face conversation with him about it. So yeah, I think at some point they both came around to it a bit more. I think what really helped them was seeing the work I was doing. So they had sort of accepted my identity, and then I decided to go and be gay on the internet, and they were like, and I didn't ever want them to know, by the way. The first thing I did when I started my Instagram account is I made my handle, I made the page and everything, and then I immediately found my mother and blocked her. That was like step one, step two. And because, come on, like, she'd be like, what the hell? Like, we are okay with you being queer, but now you want to go, like, tell, like, literally everyone. But then, unfortunately, I was featured in, like, a very popular newspaper, like, Indian daily newspaper. And I agreed to the interview. It was for Women's Day. I agreed to it because my house got Deccan Herald, and I was featured in Times of India. So I was like, okay, it's fine. We only need Deccan Herald. Stupid me forgot about the internet. And I ran downstairs on March 8th, Women's Day, and then I saw my mom is literally reading that article at 8 a.m. in the morning on her iPad. And I didn't leave my room for 2 days because I was so like terrified about her reaction. And she was definitely upset. But I think somewhere along the line, uh, she realized what I was doing was actually a good thing, and that people were actually really positively impacted by what I was doing, because we were on our way to a furniture shop and we were taking the metro, and some random female stopped me and she's like, "Oh, I know you from your Instagram," and I want to punch that woman. I'm like, "My mother is here. Why are you doing this to me?" But thankfully, it was like a pleasant interaction. My mom was staring at me the entire time, like this. And I think something about that really changed her perception, really made her accept me and also accept the work that I was doing a lot more. And I think what really helps parents is when they also feel like it's socially normalized, like when their friends and their close relatives don't make them feel weird about it. I think a lot of the times when you come out to an Indian parent, what they say is, "What will society say? Like, what will other people say?" They're not even thinking about what they're feeling. They're thinking about what other people are going to feel. So it's not even like they don't accept you. They are just as scared as you are about the social backlash. So in that way, I think it's pretty sad. And I think, when these parents do find their own societal acceptance for having a queer child, that's when it really feels okay for them. I think that's what happened with my parents, so it was easier for them.
That was incredibly well put, and like that sort of reaction is unfortunately quite common. Like it's
Yeah.
a very relatable thing for those who have come out to their parents, um, and like the way you told is very enthralling. Um, yeah, so yeah, thank you for sharing that. I'm sure there is someone who heard that needed to hear that, um, and that might help them in the future. Um,
I really love Angad, by the way. Who's Angad? You know Angad? Is Angad like a really cool person?
yeah, he is very cool.
Isn't he?
He's your
He's
biggest fan.
awesome that time. I love you, Angad. Mwah.
Yeah, he's your biggest fan.
Oh, so
Um,
sweet.
yeah. So I'll continue. Um, in contrast, uh, what have been some healing experiences with maybe like a chosen family you might have developed, communities that made you feel true, seen and like supported, and where they, uh, like you talked about your the siblings, where your friend, were there any friends or like other people who helped you, were like extremely supportive and that helped you a lot?
I think, yeah, my friends were supportive. Like, they were very sweet about it. They didn't judge me or say anything mean or distasteful. And I think it really helps. I think it's really, really important that at least people from our generation, like, hi Tir, thank you for turning on your camera. Anyway, I think it really, really helps when at least our friends and our siblings are supportive of us. I think the thing I hate the most is when I hear someone say, "Yeah, my own brother and sister didn't understand this, and they're younger than me, or they're just 2 years older than me." I'm like, what? Why? Like, it would be so, so valuable. Like, if you had that support, like, within your close ecosystem. Or like when people say, yeah, there are very like homophobic friends of mine or something, I mean, this is so stupid. Like, these are the kind of people we need to be, like, really changing. Parents and stuff is like secondary. This is primary because this is people who've grown up with our own thought processes and upbringing and everything. Like, they can't have such a different opinion of it, such a hateful, harmful opinion of it. So, yeah, I think I definitely say, what was your question? I'm sorry, I totally forgot.
Yeah, so like in contrast, like with your parents and
Yeah, the
with like
positive.
aunts.
Yeah, the positive. Yeah. I think definitely my friends, like who I came, even like my college friends who I came out to, they're sweet about it. I wouldn't say, I mean, all my classmates were nice about it, but the people that I chose to be friends with and, confided in were very, very sweet about it. And of course, they cracked their really stupid jokes and all of that, but it wasn't from a hateful place, so I didn't mind. So yeah, I would say that I have had the privilege of coming out to people who have accepted me for it, and that's really, really allowed me to have the confidence to do what I'm doing right now. I'm sure if I had like a more traumatic experience in my youth, like the first group of high school friends I came out to, if they were like, "You no, don't be like that," I'm sure I wouldn't have the confidence to be doing what I'm doing right now.
Yes, indeed. Okay, so I'll ask another question. Then we can like have audience questions. Uh, what is one concrete policy or like shift you'd like to see implemented in like schools, universities, and like workplaces to make them more inclusive?
I think it would be really nice to just talk about it. It would be really nice if, like, how very uncomfortable sex ed is forced on us sometime in sixth grade when you're in CBSE, or just the kind of annoying corporate sensitization workshops that you have. I really wish that it was somehow mandatory to also learn about this. And I know that it's not going to make everyone magically stop being homophobic or transphobic. But I do know that it will at least help people have some level of awareness about it. And I think that's really, really important for them to just, having heard the words gay and lesbian and transgender in like a normalized, positive way, would be really, really important for people. It'd be important for people who are still in the closet, completely unaware of their identity, or still in the closet, want to come out but too scared to, or openly queer folks, or cisgender heterosexual folks that aren't personally impacted by this, but should still be well aware about it. It'd be great if we had like some sort of workshops for it. If imagine if we had like LGBT sensitization workshops for like police, crazy, or for like hospital staff, crazy. It would impact so many like grassroots, you know, uh, situations and conversations in so much of a better way. If they were just aware, like, okay, yeah, this is something that exists in society. That's not some taboo, hush hush, horrible thing. Some small effort to make the taboo nature of this go away would be great. I think some level of education would be really wonderful, especially for like governmental institutions. Would be wild.
Absolutely. And I'll ask like one final question, and then we can be open to audience questions.
Okay? Yeah, yeah.
Uh, when you think about India 10 years from now, what would like a truly inclusive society look like to you? And when do you think we can like at least like start approaching that society or get like close to it as much as possible?
I don't know, because right now, from what we're seeing globally, it really seems like the LGBTQIA movement is like a very up and down sort of thing. Because take America, for example, like they were so up and up about it around 2016, and now it's horrible. Like the amount of, especially around transgender folks, the amount of hate that's surrounding that conversation is wild. People who are previously, like in a more centric view of things have become so much more polarized about all of these issues. So I don't know how well or how straightforward the fight for LGBTQIA recognition rights in our country is going to be, because I worry about how these factors like extreme political polarization across the Western world and stuff like that is going to impact our journey over here. Because for the longest time, we had the argument of, okay, developed countries are LGBTQI friendly. So therefore, if we as India want to be a developed country, we must be LGBTQI friendly. That I feel like is the most politically sane way to make, arguments like this work out. You can't just go around saying love is love, let's be who we are. No one responds to that as much as somehow linking it to like social and economic development. And we love the word development. So now, like with so many developed countries, not so many but mostly such a large example like the US is like acting so horribly about things. I don't know how the movement is going to go here, but I do know, if nothing else, even if not political and legal uh, thresholds are within our access, one threshold that is definitely within our access is social movements, is social acceptance. And like the Supreme Court said when they did not allow the legalization of same of queer marriage in India, they said the social recognition is not there for this, and we need to let Parliament decide on this issue, because then it would be a real, socially agreed upon legalization. And for some reason, that really did stick with me, because I kind of agreed with them, not in them not legalizing it, but in saying that the social recognition and social privileges or understanding is not yet there enough for the LGBTQI community in India. It's really not. And I do think that while it would be great to get legal recognition before social recognition, if legal recognition is not in our power, we can still work towards social recognition. And fortunately, that area is within all of our control. Like every single one of us can, help make queerness more socially recognized, help make transness more socially understood and respected. It's well within our reach, because what does it take? It takes having some conversations with friends, perhaps, or perhaps it takes, you finding the courage to be openly queer in your field. Like, let's say you're an amazing artist and you find the courage and the maybe even privilege to be able to come out, and you are now a very famous queer artist. You can literally be like a pioneer in your industry. You can be someone that creates opportunities for other people. We all have so much power in doing what we do, and trust me, we are like the generation of folks who are like in college right now, graduating college right now. You guys are so much more educated about things. You guys are so much more active about things. You're so much more confident about your identities. Like there is a generation gap between me and you in how easily we embraced our sexuality in some ways, because perhaps it's more normalized for you as a whole for a lot of you guys. So I think it's amazing, and I think the power is within our hands, and there's a lot that we can do to improve social recognition that will make India a lot more queer friendly for generations to come. Hopefully, in the next 10 years.
Yes, indeed. And again, it starts with just one conversation and it
Hmm.
moves on from that.
Mhm.
Um, and it was an incredible pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much.
We'll be we'll ask for like audience questions. If anyone in the audience has a
Yeah, if
question
anyone
to
has.
ask, just raise your hands and we'll unmute you.
Hey, Angad. Hi, Angad.
Yes. Hi, Prarthana. Hi, Ariditya. How are you guys doing? Like, this
We're
was a
good. How are
wonderful
you,
talk.
Angad? Have you had breakfast? How are you feeling? My new favorite person.
Yes, you are my favorite person.
Wonderful.
Honestly, if you told like the 11th grade me that I would be meeting my favorite online Kannadiga Butch whom I first mistook as a twink, I would be in denial.
Oh, lovely.
So, firstly, I would, uh, I actually really like the point you made about like how certain sections of society, especially, feel unwelcome in queer gatherings. Like, there was a recent Pride night, if I'm not wrong, at Kitiko, and then like even the entry fees was like around 2000 or something, if I'm not wrong. Like, I remember seeing it, and it was like, no, this is outside my budget. I can't go to this.
Yeah.
So, based on, if I'm not wrong, you were planning on opening a bakery called Beku. So, could I know when it's opening? Because that would seem like a really great place for like queer hangouts and just like chilling with other queer people.
Mhm. Yeah, so yeah, like Angad mentioned, I am opening a bakery, cafe, and bookstore in Bangalore, and I'm hoping that it'll be open by the end of uh, July at the latest. And it's a fairly big space, so I hope to do like a lot of events and stuff like that. And yeah, I'm very excited for it. I honestly think part of the idea was born out of my doing events around and just finding every space felt kind of adequate, and like having feverish dreams about having my own space where I could have a lot of events and stuff like that. So yeah, it'll be opening in July. If any of you all are ever in Bangalore, I would love to host you guys there.
But I literally can't wait. Finally, a space that is queer friendly. And another question I had was what you told about like recent radicalization of especially online youth. So like why do you think that is happening? Because if you look at, let us say, especially men around 13 to 14 years age, all of them are like getting radicalized in the wrong direction. So like all of them are becoming more misogynistic, queerphobic, transphobic, and even many queer people themselves are like LGB without the T. They are getting radicalized towards the right where they're hating on their own people. So why do you think that is happening?
I think the first part of what you said about like young boys and young men getting radicalized in the opposite direction, I really think it is the opposite reaction for the feminist action that goes on in our life. So like feminism has, you know, grown a lot. Queer acceptance had grown a lot, like I was speaking about, like when America was really in like a maybe good space, at least in terms of these few issues, or the whole world was going on that path of becoming like more women friendly, becoming more queer friendly, and it was like the done thing, it was the right thing, like, you know, like a UN majority vote would have gone in favor of those issues. Like that was the trajectory we were on, and that is a massive push against like what was the status quo for like literally thousands of years. And I think that sort of radical push just caused like a pushback, and that pushback came in the form of male influencers that decided that young boys and men did not have a role model to look up to anymore. And it was very true. There are not a lot of healthy male role models to look up to for young men and women. Whereas for young girls and women, that's not as true, because the feminist movement has made them a grow thicker skins. It's made them gain a sense of community against the, you know, harsh realities they face. So like, you know, girl power, girl boss, all of those sorts of things, as shallow as some of it might be, it's allowed women to come together and relate to each other. And women in general are more okay with talking to their friends about certain issues, and, you know, being open with people, and their mental health is actually in a better space than men's mental health, which is very, very unfortunate. And the main reason is men have not had to collectivize before, because the collective was always in their favor. Patriarchy was their collective action. So when there was a pushback against that, the reaction was men collectivizing again, but not to, you know, uplift themselves and uplift everyone. It was in retaliation. It was in retaliation to women. It was the shared hatred of women that made them come together. Now, I think some women maybe they come together and they share hatred for men, but I think mostly they come together in their shared love of each other and of empowering and uplifting themselves. I don't think the kind of radicalization that's affecting young boys and men is to uplift them, it is to just make them hate women. So the collective action is based on hate. And I think that is extremely scary. And I think that vacuum of healthy male role models was filled by some people who were really feeding off of men's rejection sensitivity. Like, you know, you get rejected by a girl, screw her, screw women, women suck, just earn money and become muscly, and, you know, take a bunch of steroids and look super hot, make a lot of money and drive around in a Ferrari like Andrew Tate, and everything will be okay. You don't need women, they're just objects. You have to trick women into wanting to sleep with you. This is like all of like the really, really scary stuff that goes on in a large majority of the kind of internet that men and boys consume. And it's very scary and it's very prevalent. And I think the only way that we can actually work against it is by having healthy male role models that acknowledge, like, hey, yeah, I get it. It's maybe it is a tougher time to be a man because men have never had to build a thick skin. You know, like I read this. I'm rambling on this question because I'm actually really into this issue. There is a statistic that says that body dysmorphic issues are set to affect men more in the next 10 years than it affects women. So men are going to be more insecure about their bodies than women are. And that is the wildest thing I've ever heard, because women are raised to be insecure about their bodies. But with social media standards for men's bodies becoming more and more ideal and muscular, men are more susceptible to body image issues. Men are more susceptible to taking their own lives by a large margin. And all of this is because they've not had the chance to learn helpful coping techniques, because they've never needed them before. They've never been told their bodies aren't good enough before, whereas women have been told for centuries and have somehow vaccinated themselves a little bit more against it. For men, it's a brand new issue, and they're still learning the healthy tools to cope for it. I think healthy male role models would help the most. I don't think women can step in and even help with this issue, because the kind of boys and men that are affected by it will not even take a woman's voice seriously. So men need to take these issues seriously for their brothers, and figure this stuff out. And in terms of what you were saying about like the LGB community turning against the trans community, I think it is mm, really just about wanting social acceptability. Like, if you have already found some level of social acceptability as a lesbian woman, a gay man, or a bisexual person, you want to hold on to that. And the minute you realize that this T in the community is socially unacceptable, according to the same people that are ready to accept you, like there are a lot of people that are ready to accept lesbians, gays, bisexuals, that are not ready to accept non-binary folks, transgender folks,
Yeah.
and asexuality and stuff like that is too weird for them. But this they get. This is love is love. This is fine. This is too weird. We can't figure this out. So some people are happy to just stay on this side and like throw everyone else under the bus,
Hmm.
because they get to protect their peace. It's a very selfish thing to do. And I think it is one of the biggest harms of the intersectionality of queerness that we were
Yeah.
like discussing earlier, is really that these people with privilege then throw the people who don't have social privilege at the moment under the bus to protect their own privilege, not knowing that that same bus is going to come for them eventually
Hmm.
anyway. But they don't have that long term unselfish thinking. They just want to protect their peace in the moment, which is, I think, a very human tendency, and a very, very harmful tendency for the
Yeah.
community to have.
It's kind of like how during colonization we like gave apart each other, and then like slowly the British came for each and every one of us. So
Great, great example.
yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
it's really horrible what's happening right now. I don't have the words for it. I'm so excited to talk to you. And another thing, I actually read something that was kind of similar to what you said. So it's not that men don't actually love women. The reason they actually want to like marry women and like quote unquote have sex with women and are straight is because they're taught it is the masculine thing to do. Like it is masculine to want to have sex with a woman. It is masculine to like want to grope other women and to like be sexually creepy, so as to say. So that was an amazing explanation you gave, honestly. So, yes, and I can't wait till July when your bakery finally opens, because literally in Bangalore, whenever me and my friends go out, it is always either to some super expensive place or
Mm.
to like some park where like few aunties will come and be like, don't gather and loiter around here, go
Ah,
away, shoo. Yeah.
huh.
Like me and like three of my friends will be sitting on a park bench and they'll be like, you're causing too much disturbance over here, get up, move, go. So the only place we have left is like those expensive cafes, and I'm going to be honest, my bank account cannot handle any more of those trips. So
Yeah, fair enough, I guess. Anyway,
yes,
anything else, Angad?
I guess that's it from my side. A huge fan, I love you so
I'm
much.
a huge fan. I love you so much too, Angad. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Okay. Again, like it's such a wonderful conversation we just had. Nathan, we can wrap it up if there's no other questions to be
If
asked.
anyone else has a question, please feel free to ask. Otherwise, we can go
Yeah.
take a noon nap.
Uh, I have a question.
Yeah.
So, how that in America you see that there are many cultures, like especially pop culture, that embraces the LGBTQI community,
Yeah.
and that really helps us as well, because I like that pop culture, and it is prevalent in many other countries as well. If you see K-pop or you see Japanese pop, I don't find that thing in India. Is like, I know there are many queer musicians out there,
Mhm.
but they don't have an impact, or they don't influence the community as much as, like, it is not noticeable, at least to me as an Indian.
Yeah.
So do you think there is a reason for that?
I think you're very right. It does. It's something even I've also not noticed a lot of uh, desi gay musicians, queer musicians, musicians. No, I've not noticed a lot. I think one of the reasons for that is basically the music industry in India itself is more primed towards movie soundtracks and new Bollywood movie released, like the non-movie related music scene of India. I think only started growing maybe more recently, if I'm not wrong. Like I think it's something that these indie bands and stuff like that, it became like more of a thing more recently. Like even now, if I were to name the most famous singers I know in India, most of them are movie singers. Rahman, Lata Mangeshkar, Shreya Ghoshal, all of those kind of people. And there's not a lot of bands and you know musicians that get the same kind of acclaim in India. That I think it's coming up a lot more. I think hopefully we'll be able to see this in a few more years. But for now, I think because of the way the music industry is structured, it's a lot harder for an independent artist to grow. And I think because of that, it will be even more harder for a queer independent music artist to grow. And yeah, I get what you're saying. Like it's not at the same level. And I do think hopefully if any of you want to be gay musicians, go for it. We'll support you. Okay, great.
Yeah.
I think if that's it, if anyone has a question, feel free. Otherwise, we can. Oh, Piyush has a question.
Hello, ma'am. So actually, I had a question that's a small question. So like, there's a lot of comedy based on sexuality and other topics. So what should be the limit according to you that we should consider that after it the comedy is offensive, and till the limit it is allowed? Like, it's just comedy, right?
I mean, fair enough. I think, honestly, there is a way to be funny without punching down on people who are less privileged than you. Like, I prefer comedy where folks are making fun of themselves or just have clever social observations. I think any comedian who chooses to, like, if there's a male comedian who makes a joke about hitting his wife, I don't think it's funny. I don't think it's funny at all. If there is a cisgender male heterosexual comedian making fun of a guy that hit on him in a bar and made him feel uncomfortable, and he's putting down the gay man in question rather than, you can make jokes. Like I'm not saying comedians who are not gay can't make jokes about gayness, but it should be more about, okay, I didn't even know this, oh my own ignorance, oh I realized something, oh ha 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 ha. It's easier to punch at yourself or punch up then it's never a good idea to punch down. So if a female comedian goes and makes a joke about you know uh, queer people, that's also not okay, because at the end of the day you are harming the community, and whether you like it or not, your audience is taking what you say and treating it as normal. So if you're making jokes about gay people and trans people, it's not funny. You are normalizing hatred towards them and passing it off as comedy and making money out of it. So I don't think it's ever okay. I think a lot of people try and do this, like even in our daily lives. Like, they'll say something that is sexist or homophobic and transphobic. And then if one of their friends is like, what are you doing? They're like, "Yeah, it's just a joke. Don't be so sensitive." I'm sure even as queer people with heterosexual friends who don't fully understand, sometimes they might do that. They might make a joke like, it's just a joke. Grow a thicker skin. Why are you so sensitive? I think especially women are the butt of a lot of those sort of jokes. And I think men are also like really can be really hurt by hearing something like that. And I don't think it's ever okay to crack jokes where you're punching down on someone, on a historically very hurt and underrepresented and hated group of people. I don't think it's funny. Like if I as a Hindu person sat here and cracked Muslim jokes, that is just not okay. Like because they are a historically more hurt community. So I can't use my privilege that I have in this country and start to crack those jokes. I'm like, it's just a joke. Like, why are you taking it so seriously? It's not. It's hurtful and it is propagating harmful stereotypes. So I think that's my take on it. I don't think it's ever funny if it actually hurts people, and I think comedians have a lot of material that they can make jokes about. It would be better if they focus on that. It'd be way more funny also.
Yeah, and adding to that, like whenever, let us say, I call one of my friends out on making such insensitive jokes, especially when they make jokes on like women getting sexually assaulted, they get super defensive and they're like, oh, it's just a joke. There's no issue with that. But in fact, it's like normalizing the whole women being sexually assaulted scenario. So that's like very problematic in my opinion.
Yeah. I think a joke is like some, I don't know, transparent sheet that you're using to cover a dead body. Like it's not actually covering it. I can still see that you have these thoughts, you have these ideals, you have these morals. These are your values and beliefs, and you can't just show those values and beliefs and then immediately like hide them, saying, "No, no, it's just a joke. Don't be so serious about it." It's pure defensiveness, and I don't think it's ever okay.
Yeah, it's kind of like saying I can't be racist. I have this friend who is of color, so
Yeah, it's so stupid. It's these are just thinly veiled defense mechanisms to not challenge your own values and grow as a person.
yeah. It's kind of sad what society has come to.
I think, it's easy to think that, okay, yeah, the world is way worse now than it ever was. It can feel that way, but that's only because we are hearing the news from every part of the world, which our grandparents and parents wouldn't have heard as much. So
Hmm.
we feel like the world is on fire a lot more. I think the world's always been on fire. Like, I keep wondering, when was a historical time when women and queer people were treated better? When was a historical time when war was completely absent from the world? I don't think that, or when hate was at an all time low in the world, I don't think there was ever a time like that. I just think, unfortunately, we have so much stimulation, so much news coming to us, and there's so much like polarization and negative bias in the world that we
Yeah.
we feel the brunt of it a lot more. So if any of you think like the world is at an all time low, just know the world always sucked. So it's fine.
It was never good.
I don't think so. I think we just try to make it good, and that's what gives us purpose in life. But everything balances out positively and negatively at the end.
Hmm. Makes sense.
I think Naman wants to ask another question.
Sure, please do.
Yeah, so I had some conversations in my first year in college.
Mm-hmm.
So during those quote unquote debates,
Mm-hmm.
I had a lot of time thinking about it, that the LGBTQIA community
Yeah.
like developed itself a lot faster than the other part of the world could understand it. So we came up with pronouns, and I'm not saying it's bad, not
Mm-hmm.
at all,
I get
but
it.
we evolved so much faster than the people could understand what they're meant to see. And we had many, like, we fragmented ourselves, and we had many pronouns and other things. So what those debates announced was that they could not understand anything beyond the more like four letters that we know. So would you agree on that, or is there a way to fix it?
I think I kind of understand where you're coming from. I think you know it is the mindset of the listener at the end of the day. I think if someone has truly accepted queerness as equal, and you respect things that you don't understand, and all of those things, I don't think these issues really come up. But I do appreciate the fact that it is hard to shift mindsets that quickly. It is hard to be like, okay, you wanted this also, okay, you wanted legalization also, you want a marriage also, you want kids also, you want me to change my language also for you, you want a reservation also. It can feel like, oh god, how much do you want? As someone who is not personally affected by these issues, it might be hard to completely understand where the other person is coming from sometimes. I have personally had my own friends who are very accepting of me still make jokes about how there are apparently 72 genders, and that just seems kind of ridiculous to them. And in a way, I get where they are coming from, but I also get that you don't have to always understand someone's identity to respect it. Like, I'm sure you guys are very smart. You study at BITS Pilani, but this example of, okay, just because you don't understand rocket science doesn't mean you don't respect rocket science. I don't understand rocket science, but I respect it. And I think that is the logic I like to take, like even if you don't fully understand something, because I'll be very, very frank with you, I'm a cis woman, and for the longest time, I had to spend a lot more time understanding trans issues and understanding non-binary identity, and it's coming from a place of internalized transphobia that I had because of my presentation and my need to continue being a cis woman through it. So I was vaguely not a very uh, I'd say well-educated trans ally at the time, and I had to go through a pretty painful process of self-questioning before I could understand where my phobia was coming from and move beyond it. And I think there is a lot of effort sometimes for heterosexual people to take. So even the most accepting heterosexual person might occasionally come up against a wall where they feel like this is too much. Like the most accepting cisgender person will still come against a wall and think, okay, this is too much. And in that time, I really like to employ the even if you don't understand it, just respect it policy, because I think it'll at least help us move on with our lives and be avoid the drama that comes with fighting with each other.
Very well, but especially how. Okay, we have another question.
I really like you guys. You actually have questions for me. Oh, nice. Thanks.
Okay, okay.
Okay, so Joshua asked, I had a question. So outside of college, I usually socialize or try to with queer people online. This is how I met queers in my locality without having to explicitly out myself to people who may be against. However, this has led me to people who wanted things I wasn't comfortable with. How can one be safer regarding this? Okay, I think this is really definitely a very common issue that folks come up against. I mean, online communities are really the best way to make friends a lot of the time, especially for queer folks, because finding a queer person is finding a needle in a haystack. You don't know where they are, you don't know how to identify them. So sometimes it's easier to just be online because you also have the safety of anonymity. And I think the best thing you can do is definitely if you come across someone who's making you uncomfortable in any way, like either with their requests or the kinds of expectations they have, it's always best to first communicate with that person that this is not something that you want. And if they continue to violate that boundary, it is best to cut them out of your life and stuff like that. It would be like, you know, best for your mental peace and safety. And how can you be safer regarding this? Honestly, I don't think you can, Joshua. Like, I would love to give you like some way of filtering people so that you never have discomfort in your personal life, but that's just not realistic, right? Like, even if you were to meet people in real life, there is a very strong possibility that some of them might have very different expectations and perspectives from you that can make you uncomfortable. The best thing to do is communicate. If they don't respond to the communication and continue to violate your boundaries, move away from this person. Do not allow them to gaslight you or convince you that somehow you are wrong and you are the guilty party and they are not. If your discomfort is real, then please prioritize yourself no matter what kind of relationship it is. And yeah, that's the best I can give you. Hope it helps, Joshua. Okay, I
Okay,
think,
we have another question.
okay,
Uh,
let's do this as the last question, okay?
yeah,
Yeah.
this is
So,
after
ma'am,
talk.
actually, I had one more question. Like in the
Mhm.
debate of sex versus gender, there is a concept of like self-identification.
Yeah.
So, like, if I'm a man and I'm identifying myself as a woman, that's okay. But some people also give this argument that I might identify myself as a chair or a sloth or a panda. So, what do you think of it? And it is like used as like the most wrong argument against the LGBTQIA community.
I think I honestly think it's just a mimicry. Like people are, taking that the freedom of self-identification and making a joke out of it. Honestly, I think there is no like any research or any sort of scientific recognition of anyone wanting to be a panda or a chair or something like that. And it it is one of those really really common. There are a lot of these really common like rhetorics or arguments that always come up against the LGBTQI community. Most common ones are there are only two to three biological sexes. Like there are only two biological sexes. How can you say this? Or there are only it's always a phase, or you guys are a disappointment to your parents, or la 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 la. I think this is just one of those things that online trolls have realized is like a argument that really gets people angry, and they use it against us. I think how do we respond to them? The way we would to any hateful comment or troll. Like, this is not what self-identification is for. It's not for you to make a mimicry out of. And you ignore them. A lot of the time I find it easier to ignore hate than to engage with it, because if that person wanted to be more accepting, they would be. It's not like there's a lack of information in this world with the internet. I think that person does not want to. They want to cause drama. They wanna so they will continue to do it. Best for you to protect your peace rather than arguing with these people and making them see logically, you are wrong. They don't care about logic. They just want to go do their little trolling.
I think what Angat said is like quite apt. Like shows the silliness of that kind of argument. Okay, anyways, then we can wrap it up. It was amazing to have you,
Lovely.
Pratna, and uh, especially your experience with your parents with coming out. That resonated very well with me because I've gone through a similar experience as well. Like knowing that it's I'm not the only one. Like that
Yeah.
does help a lot. Um, anyways, yeah, this conversation has reminded us that pride is not just about identity. It's about justice, dignity, and essentially making it like a safer place for everyone, and like not just for queer people, but for like cis people, for cis heterosexual people as well. Because I like because uh, like the movement also breaks down gender norms as well, and
Yeah.
like I think that's a way where like it kind of goes hand in hand with destroying the patriarchy as well. It goes hand in hand, and ultimately like to conclude, I'll say like let this not be the end, but the beginning of more conversations, more questions, more solidarity, and and how we can self improve. And thank you all for joining us once
Yeah.
again. Happy Pride, and thank you, Pratna, for your time and your
Thank you so much.
generosity for being here. And
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you all who joined, who listened so patiently, so nicely, and thank you to everyone who asked questions. And yeah, I hope you guys have a lovely day. Bye bye. See you.
bye.